Welcome to Breaking Through Health Barriers. I'm your host, Dr. Terry Wenner, bringing you wisdom, wit, and encouragement for healthy living. I'm an educator, a registered nurse, a podcaster, and a blogger, and I'm so glad you decided to listen in today. This is episode 1, where we'll be discussing two main topics: overall well-being and vaping and e-cigarette use. I started a discussion of health and well-being on my second blog post, so if you haven't checked that out yet, you might want to look at that. Today, we're going to continue looking at this topic in a little more detail. I'd like to bring your attention to a book that I'm currently reading called Well-Being: The 5 Essential Elements. This book was written by Tom Rath and Jim Harder in 2010, and it's a product of Gallup Incorporated, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard of. Gallup is an American research-based global performance management consulting company. It was founded by George Gallup in 1935, and the company became widely known for its public opinion polls. Gallup provides research and strategic consulting to large organizations in many countries, focusing on analytics and advice to help leaders and organizations solve their most pressing problems. Now, although this book was written in 2010, which may be a little dated by today's standards, they do publish updated study results regularly on their company's website. And that website can be found at gallup.com, spelled Gallup. And all the websites that I'll mention today, you will be able to find links to them in the show notes, so don't worry about writing them down. This book has many facets that are very interesting, and we will talk about more of them in the future. But today, I really wanted to focus in on just 3 aspects of this book. The first is, what are the 5 essential elements? So what is the title talking about? Now, unlike the aspects of well-being that I discussed on my website, this author, or these authors, talk about 5. They talk about the first one being career or purpose, second one being social, third being financial, fourth being physical, and fifth being community. So that is another way of looking at it. No one way is correct or incorrect. It's just different aspects of looking at it. And I think this is a great place to get you thinking about your own life. Do you have issues going on in any of these 5 areas that are causing you to not feel good about yourself, like you're in a healthy state? So those are some things that we will actually one by one take each of those elements separately in future podcasts and blogs. But today I just wanted to mention that's what we're talking about. The second phase of well-being that has to do with this book that I found interesting is their online state reports. So if you live in the United States, this pertains to you. Each one of us live in one of the 50 states, and Gallup has been studying various individuals and doing statewide comparisons since 2008. And what they do is they calculate what's called the well-being index. It's on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 represents the lowest possible well-being, and 100 represents the highest possible well-being. I found it interesting how different states scored, and they do list that the 5 highest scores in 2015 went to the following 5 states. Number 1 was Hawaii, 2 Alaska, 3 Montana, 4 Colorado, and 5 Wyoming. Now, personally, I haven't visited any of those states, but I think they're going to be going to my list, of future travel sites because I'd like to check out what's going on in those areas. If you live in one of those areas, feel free to comment on the website under the podcast link. There's a spot for you to put comments. If you live in one of those states, tell us what's going on. What's wonderful about living in those particular areas. Now, if there's the highest states, there's going to be the lowest states. The lowest 5 scores went to West Virginia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Ohio, and Indiana. So we'd also like to hear from you. If you live in one of those states, what's going on that's giving your state low scores? On the website, I took a an opportunity to browse around a little bit further, and they actually went through each of the 5 categories that I talked about and listed, which state came up highest or which 5 states came up highest in each of the categories. So, for example, I'm not going to talk about all of them today. You can certainly check the link yourself. But if we're talking about physical health, Hawaii was first, Colorado was second, third was California, fourth was Montana, and fifth was Connecticut. So, those are interesting little tidbits there. In regards to physical well-being, the lowest states were West Virginia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Indiana. So this is nothing more than just interesting information, but I found it interesting. I thought you might as well. All this information, is interesting to look at, but really what matters most is how we score individually. So I wanted to share a little bit about my own results. If you've taken this test, or if you plan on taking it in the near future, feel free to go to the comment section again on the website and post your feedback. Remember, that's drterrywenner.com, and just tell us a little bit more about your results. So the scores ranged from, this is more statewide. The scores ranged from Hawaii being an average of 64.8 and West Virginia being at 58.5. So that was the range. Remember, the highest potential was 100, and that would be a total of the 5 different areas. So when you look at that range, what does it tell you? Well, what it tells me is there's a lot of room for improvement. If the average was in the 50s to 60s, I think there's a lot of potential for improvement with our overall well-being. I've been teaching nursing students for about 10 years now, and some might even be listening to this podcast. And I can guarantee you, if any of the students in my classes scored between 58 and 65 on an exam, they would not be happy with those scores. I'm sure my email box would be overflowing. I would be getting stopped in the hallways. Probably a few might even try to blame me. But regardless, they would not be content with 58 to 65. So why would we be content with those type of scores when it comes to our overall well-being? Don't we want to be happy, productive, healthy people that are enjoying every moment of our lives as much as possible? I know I do, and I know there's room for improvement in my life, and I hope that you'll see the same in your own. In the long run, who can fix the problems if you're not happy with your scores? No one can fix them but you. Sure, there's others that can help you, but ultimately the ball is in your court. You are driving the bus here. It is in your hands whether or not changes happen or not. So back to my own scores. So if you purchase a new copy of the book that I mentioned, it comes with a well-being assessment. As a matter of fact, it doesn't just come with one. It gives you access to a website that gives you a year-long access that you can retake the assessment as many times as you would like. They actually encourage it to be regularly retaken. So if you're interested in this topic, I encourage you to pick up a copy. I purchased a Kindle copy, and they provided me with an access code that was emailed to me, and I was able to access the assessment on the website by that. But in all honesty, I don't like to spend money that I don't have to. So, if you can get the book through a local library or used, that is totally fine as well. I really chose to purchase this book new because I wanted the access to the assessment tool. On a personal note, I tend to use Amazon.com frequently for my purchases, and because of that, I've set up what's called an Amazon Associate link on my website. You might notice it. It's on the right-hand side. It's a little Amazon logo. And I just want to take a minute to talk about this in case you're not familiar with it. Some of you certainly already are. But Amazon offers an affiliate or associate program that benefits people who tell others about their company. So basically, it's like a recommendation fee. If I recommend Amazon.com to you and you use my link, that will tell Amazon that Dr. Terry Wenner told you to go to Amazon because she thinks it's a great place to shop. if you do that, when you do your shopping, nothing changes. Nobody's, keeping track of your purchases or anything like that. You just do your normal shopping. And then at the end, during your checkout, a very small finder's fee, in a sense, kind of goes to my account. And so your purchase benefits me as well. I'm certainly not trying to get rich through my blogs and podcasts, but I would like to be able to collect enough money to cover the costs of running a website. So this is one way that can be done. The best way to remember to use this link is to click on the link once and then save it as a bookmark to your computer. Then in the future, you don't have to spend time finding it again. You just click on the link that you saved and it works. If you're already supporting someone else through the Amazon Associate program, that's wonderful. I don't need you to change anything that you're doing. But if you're not currently supporting someone, I would love to have you support me. So now time for a little fun fact. What were my results on the well-being test? Okay, so here I am trying to teach others about how to live healthy lives and have optimal well-being. So what were my scores? Okay, well, hang on for this. My overall score was 68. Okay, so that means I failed the test too. It actually happens to be higher than the average in Hawaii, so that's good news that I scored higher than the average in the highest state. But still, 68 leaves room for improvement. 2 of the 5 categories for me were listed as a score of 7, which was considered thriving, so that's actually a good thing. And 3 of the categories resulted in a score of 6. And that's considered struggling, and so that concerned me a little bit. They also describe it as moderate level or inconsistent. I kind of liked those words a little bit better, but I would actually have to agree with those scores. I am at a stage in my life where I'm going through a career transition. So I am seeking, more stability, and that's possibly why those scores showed up a little low, and I'm okay with that because I'm going through this process with all of you that are listening. There's always room to grow. So I think, ideally, I'd like all my categories to be 5. I could report the score of 100 and we'd be good to go. Is that likely to happen? Probably not. But still, if I can get closer to the 10 mark, that's moving in the right direction. Now, when I finished taking the test, I received a 10-page report that listed my results, possible action items, and lastly, it gave me the opportunity to select target dates. So this is coming up with clear goals for yourself. It allows you to get reminders sent to you by email. And, the point of taking any test is not just to have said you completed it. It is to obtain something. So when you get scores that are lower than ideal, that gives you focus on knowing where you should work and, what you should do next. So as a little bonus, if you'd like to check out my Instagram account, which is, everything that I've done is drterrywenner.com, DrTerriwenner. Sometimes on certain sites they don't use the .com at the end, but I figured that would make it easy. Find me anywhere you want. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, all the main sites that are out there. Anyway, what I've done is I've posted a screenshot of the email I received that shows my scores. So if you'd like to check that out on Instagram, that's just something for fun that you can do. All right, so that was the introduction, really, to our well-being topic. As I mentioned in future podcasts and blogs, we'll be breaking that down and looking at some of the details in each of those 5 categories, but I think that kind of wets your whistle for a little bit more of that. Okay, the middle section of the podcast today is called Dr. Terry's Health Tip and Challenge of the Week. So, person of action, and I want to encourage you to do healthy things, make positive changes in your life. So, in each podcast, I'll just throw something in there that you might want to take advantage of. So, this particular tip comes from Harvard Health, and I did share the link to this article on my Twitter page, so if you want to check that out. And what they referred to was a study that was published on February 22nd of this year, 2016, by the Journal of Human Nutrition and Dietetics, and it examined dietary habits of more than 18,000 adults. So that's a lot of people. I conducted a research study and I used 14. So this is 18,000. We're talking, pretty impressive numbers here. Anyway, this study found that those who increased their daily intake of plain water did a variety of things. They reduced their total calorie intake. They reduced their consumption of saturated fat, sugar, sodium, and cholesterol. So that is 5 benefits that come from drinking more plain water. So, unless you're somebody that is already doing an excellent job with water intake, I want to encourage you to consider increasing your plain water intake by 1 to 2 glasses per day. Small steps in the right direction will make a difference in the long run. So how are you going to do this? Well, you have to start putting it into your schedule regularly. Habits are what stick. Anybody can do something once. Not everybody can continue to do it in a way that has a positive effect on your life. So try having a glass of water every time you go to the bathroom. All right, so you go to the bathroom, and no, I'm not asking you to store water bottles in your bathroom, but then head to the kitchen and get a water bottle or cup of glass of water. When you wake up in the morning is another excellent time. I know there's a lot of research coming out on getting your system into a more highly metabolic state by drinking water and getting things moving in the morning. And other times could be before every meal. If you put a little water in your stomach, you may not be as ravished to pile in the food with the high calories. So that's, something to think about. So the next question I'm sure you're asking is, so how much do I drink? Well, I wish I could give you an easy answer for that, but there's not an easy answer to that question. Years ago, when I was in elementary school, high school, there was a one-size-fits-all approach. Everyone was told to drink 8-ounce glasses of water, so everyone drank 64 ounces of water. Not glasses. Geez, that'd be a lot. 8-ounce glasses or 64 ounces. Guess what? That's an outdated approach. My husband and I are very different in size and shape. If we were to drink the same amount, would that have the same effect on us? It would not. So the latest approach uses several things to calculate how much water you need. First of all, it does use your size and weight. Obviously, if you're bigger, you need more water, right? The second is your activity level. And the third is where you live. So in my doctoral education, I took 2 trips out to Arizona to do on-site residencies. And, I live in Pennsylvania, so it was all the way across the nation, and the atmosphere is very different in Arizona. So they pretty much, our first instruction at our residency was you need to drink water constantly. If you have coffee, you need to drink double the amount of water. But you cannot allow yourself to get dried out. Have to adjust. So certainly where you live matters too. As a general rule of thumb, the research is saying that your range should be 1/2 ounce to 1 full ounce for every pound you weigh, and this would be every day on a daily basis. So what that would calculate out to be is for a person weighing 150 pounds, their range would be 75 to 150 ounces. So that's a pretty wide range. How are you going to determine what's best for you? Well, you're going to have to check with your healthcare provider. I mentioned in my episode 0 that I can't answer all the questions. I cannot help you figure out the ideal water intake for you. That's something that you should really be checking with your healthcare provider on. The one thing that I would want to add is if you are somebody who's been told to limit fluid. So this could be anybody with a kidney problem, a heart problem, sometimes blood pressure problems or endocrine issues. If anybody has told you to limit your fluid, then do not listen to what I just said. So extra fluid will harm certain disease states, so I do not want you to do that unless you have your doctor's approval. But for the average healthy person that has been getting clear checkups, good health checkups, increasing your water intake is generally a good idea. Now, I didn't put this in my notes, but it just popped into my mind. I do teach the older adult course for nursing students as well. And one of the big things to point out is that you can't trust your thirst sensation once you hit a certain age. The thirst sensation decreases. So you can't just assume that you're not thirsty, you don't need water. You do. And so older adults, definitely be in touch with your healthcare provider and figure out how much you should be drinking. You might want to do this on a schedule. And with older adults especially, you don't want to do it before bed. Who wants to be up peeing at 2 o'clock in the morning if you don't have to be, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. So that was the health tip and challenge of the week, is to increase plain water, provided that your doctor says it's okay. The second half of today's show is dedicated to the memory of my mother-in-law, Barbara Wenner, who passed away a few weeks ago on August 14th, 2016. I put the link to her obituary on the show notes if any of you want to check that out. Although Barbara didn't earn a degree in a university or college, she was the original Dr. Wenner. She was an avid reader. She regularly performed in-home health experiments to see what would work best. And she never hesitated to tell you what she thought was wrong with you or how you should fix it. I successfully defended my doctoral dissertation and became the real Dr. Wenner on Friday, August 12th. I was able to visit with her in the hospital and hear her congratulations on August 13th. And then she passed away the next morning on August 14th. Her spunk and willingness to take risks will always be remembered fondly by our family and all of her friends. Okay, vaping and e-cigarettes. Well, it's common knowledge that smoking cigarettes is harmful to your health, right? I mean, even our third graders could tell us that. The CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, lists cigarette smoking as the leading preventable cause of death in the United States. A few facts for you. Cigarette smoking causes more than 480,000 deaths each year in the United States, and this is nearly 1 in 5 deaths. That's huge. That's a huge statistic. Smoking causes about 90% of all lung cancer deaths in men and women. And about 80% of all deaths from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease are caused by smoking as well. So obviously, smoking is a serious issue. We do not want people to keep doing it. We want people to have healthier lungs, not end up with lung cancer, and just basically live healthier, easier breathing lives. So some things have been coming out, in the purchasing world, that you can choose other options besides cigarettes. And one of those has to do with vaping and e-cigarette use. I have to admit, I really didn't know much about vaping until I recently decided to investigate it, to find out more on my own. I discuss smoking hazards in nursing courses that I teach all the time. But our textbook, the textbook I had been using, really didn't talk about vaping. So I really thought it was time to do some digging. I thought this would be a pretty quick learning curve, find 2 or 3 articles, and I'd be good to go. That was the furthest thing from the truth. Oh boy, was I surprised. If you start browsing the internet for resources on this topic, you will quickly be overwhelmed. Now, I don't mean to tell you not to look, because you probably would need to do a full-fledged dissertation to decipher all you find. But if you'd like to sort through the 19 million Google hits for vaping, be my guest. Looking for, a little bit more credible research, I then turned to Google Scholar, which is a good site to get an overall feel for what's out there. It doesn't always give you access to the articles you need, but it gives you a listing of what's available. And, when I went to Google Scholar, I thought, let's narrow it down a bit. 19 million was a bit much. What's available in Google Scholar just in 2016? So these are more credible resources, 1,930. Again, as I mentioned, overwhelming. How am I going to go through almost 2,000 articles in order to make a podcast, right? That just wasn't likely to get to be happening. So what I'm going to do is, I certainly don't claim to be an expert on this topic, but I did manage to sort through the information enough that I feel qualified to give you some of the highlights there that I'm going to share today. If someone out there listening has personal experience or strong opinions on this topic, I invite you to use the comment section on my website and post your thoughts. So let's get started. It's always good to start any kind of topic discussion with a clear definition of what we're talking about. So what is vaping? Well, the top Google hit for this topic came up with a site called Vapor Soul. You can find it at vaporsoul.com. It's a company that is in Los Angeles, California. And I kind of liked the way they set their website up. They gave a lot of helpful information for the newbie to vaping that I am. They defined vaping as the act of inhaling vapor from e-liquid through a personal vaporizer. And this is the vapor's tobacco-free version of a traditional cigarette. So when you're smoking a cigarette, there's tobacco involved. And instead, with vaping, you would use a personal vaporizer. So this sounds very personalized. I get my own stuff. I get my own personal vaporizer. I'm going to inhale stuff that comes out of e-liquid. All right, so what's e-liquid? That kind of concerned me a little bit. So the next thing they discussed, kudos to Vapor Soul, they discussed what's e-liquid. E-liquids generally consist of propylene glycol or vegetable glycerin or both. Additionally, natural or artificial flavors are used to create exotic or unique flavors. Well, I'm not really sure what those chemicals are. They could be okay. Maybe they're not okay. I'm not really sure, but I don't know, exotic flavors, unique flavors, that sounds attractive. So I continued to search a little bit more, see what else I could find about vaping products. The next thing that I found was there's a lot out there on the sale of vape products. So years ago, I used to work at a Wawa convenience store. It was my job to sell all the products in the store, which consisted of cigarettes. So yes, Nurse Terry did used to sell cigarettes. One of those hidden secrets that's coming out of my past. Well, in the store, they stored them above the cash registers, and you just, reached up, grab a pack. For somebody that was 4'9" like me, sometimes I had to ask for a little help for things that were higher up. But either way, you reached into this unknown little, storage area and you picked out what you needed. But that's not the case when it comes to vaping and e-cigarette products. Oh no. If you start looking online, you will see large displays of very, very detailed products. I went and checked out a Facebook page of a store that's in my home state of Pennsylvania. It's called Vaping Me Crazy in New Hope, Pennsylvania. And you can see just from their front picture on their page that they have a variety of supplies to sell. Many other online stores advertise 200 flavors. People, that's more than you get in an ice cream store or a water ice store, right? We have Rita's water ice around our home. I don't think they have 200 flavors in Rita's, So, wow. I mean, vaping products, you can get 200 flavors. So I had to take a look. What kind of flavors do you have out there that are so wonderful? My husband has a friend that prefers butterscotch. But some of the flavors that I saw listed there, they have all your traditional fruit flavors. They have a variety of food flavors. You can get New York style cheesecake. Common alcoholic beverage flavors as well. You can get the fuzzy navel or the pina colada, but you get the point. It goes on and on and on. There's 200 flavors out there. This is amazing, right? So let's get back to our definitions. I get diverted pretty easily. So now we know what vaping is and we know what e-liquid is. What else do we need to know? Well, Vapor Soul mentioned a couple of areas that were important. They talked about vaping versus smoking. They talked about nicotine strengths, and they also talked about, is vaping safe? So all of those questions seemed really good to me. So the benefits. Now this is a short list. You will find additional things other places online, but feel free to do your own research. So here are some of the benefits that this store listed. No bad smell and bad breath from odorless vapor. So if you're smoking butterscotch or fuzzy navel, there's not going to be bad breath and bad odor from that. Second benefit, no cigarette burns or dirty ashtrays. The next one is less likelihood of getting cancer and other smoking-affiliated illnesses. Okay, so this is red flag alert, red flag alert. My student nurses, graduated student nurses, will tell you it always comes down to one word. That one word tells it all, right? Did you catch what the one word was? I'm going to read it one more time for you. Less likelihood of getting cancer and other smoking-affiliated illnesses. Less was the one word here. Less likelihood of getting cancer and other smoking-affiliated illnesses. Less does not mean none. So keep that one in the back of your mind. The fourth benefit is that it's more cost-effective in the long run than cigarettes. And then the fifth one is that it can help people quit smoking. Another red flag alert. Can does not mean does, and it does not mean will, and it does not mean it's guaranteed. So keep that one in the back of your mind too. So, hey, there are great things. You don't stink as bad. You're not going to be burning yourself with cigarette burns, and you're not going to have dirty ashtrays. But we have this thing hanging out there about possible cancer, possible smoking-affiliated illnesses, and it might help you quit, but we really aren't really guaranteeing that. So those were some things to think about. So let's move on to some more areas that, I believe Vape Soul was telling us about. So what about nicotine? So this is interesting to learn as well. E-liquids are available in a number of strengths of nicotine. You can get no nicotine, so 0 milligrams, up to 24 milligrams of nicotine. So there's some positive things about that. We have options. If we want to keep our nicotine coming, we certainly can. If we don't want any, we can choose that too. And then here's the good thing when it comes to healthcare providers. We like to be able to wean people off of bad things, right? So we have all these variety of strengths. We can help somebody wean down, right? So that would be another thing too. So I did like the available, strengths of nicotine. Cold turkey is not always a good thing if you're trying to give up nicotine. So, that can be helpful. And if you want to be nicotine free and just, be puffing on your fuzzy navel, that's a possibility too. So then the last thing is, what about safety? Okay, so kudos to Vapor Soul again. On their homepage, they do offer links to several articles that discuss safety and research aspects. And I do think they provided a very good variety of perspectives, which is a very good thing because not everyone is able to, sort through articles easily. So by providing both, they did a good job of that. They do summarize with a statement that says various studies have proved that vaping is far safer alternative to smoking. However, as vaping is new, the long-term effects are unknown. Overall, this seems to be a pretty fair statement, so we're going to, go with that for now. Okay, I'm going to continue on here. So, no disrespect to Vapor Soul because I think they did a pretty good job. However, I'm interested in more from the medical point of view, and I'm sure many of you are too. So what else is out there? How about digging into the research a little bit more? So I subscribe to a few health-related newsletters, and one of the ones that came through really caught my eye. It was in an online journal called Preventing Chronic Disease by Lilin Huang. And some of the things that article talked about was that the use of electronic cigarettes continues to rise among teens. And there is new evidence that a growing number of high school-aged youth who don't even smoke cigarettes are now taking up the e-cigarette habit. Okay, so now we thought we were helping get rid of one bad habit, and now apparently we've created a new habit. Good or bad, that's, undetermined in a concrete way at this point in time. But now we have teenagers basically thinking it's cool to smoke e-cigarettes. Okay, so that's one thing that we're seeing in the research. They actually did their research in North Carolina. They found that e-cigarette use had increased fourfold between 2011 and 2013, and that really reflected an upward trend among teenagers nationwide. And also, the article said 1 in 5 non-smoking teens who participated in the survey said that they plan to try e-cigarettes within the next year. So these are people who haven't tried it yet, but it seems pretty attractive. So why not give it a try? Let's look into that a little bit more and see if it's something that we want to do. So it almost seems like there might be a little peer pressure going on or a little bit of high marketing going on that people want to give into that. This finding is particularly troubling to me and I'm sure parents, pediatricians, nurse practitioners that work with children nationwide. So given that e-cigarettes have recently become the leading form of a tobacco product in the U.S. adolescent population, North Carolina's cigarettes never smokers, that's really concerning. So, this definitely is something that we're going to have to look into further, continue to watch the research and see what else is going on. I think that at this point I'm going to break and we will make the rest of the content that I have the beginning of our next episode. I don't want to rush it. I want to kind of give you a little bit of opportunity to let those things soak in, and we will continue on next week. So, as we start to wrap up, I want to invite you to add comments to the webpage. So we have 2 areas that we discussed today, so you can comment on either one. So first of all, how would you estimate your overall sense of well-being? And how would you estimate it in the community where you live? So first type of reflection questions have to do with well-being. And then secondly, what has been your experience with vaping and e-cigarettes? Do you know about them? Have you seen them? Do you have friends and family members who are using them? Do you find them beneficial? Anything that you'd like to share. Now remember, there will be more coming. We're going to be talking about the research, a little bit more about research related to vaping and e-cigarettes. And then we're also going to talk about legislation that is coming to the forefront regarding vaping and e-cigarette use. And this is going to be, both federally and statewide. So thank you for tuning in. This is Dr. Terry Wenner. Together, we're going to break through as many health barriers as possible and live happier, healthier lives. Have a wonderful day.